Well, welcome back. And today, my guest is Andrew Matrone. And Andrew and I have known each other for a number of years. And the reason I wanted to have Andrew on today is because Andrew is a great example of somebody who's gone through a transformation, very much somebody who has a heart and a passion for ministry, working with churches, and has done that, has worked for the church, and then also transformed into kind of a hybrid earner. We'll talk about what that is, and has created multiple other businesses and opportunities, and recaptured time with his family. A lot of the things that probably somebody would want today. A lot of people feel trapped by their job or by their commitments, and Andrew's figured out a way to break free from all that. And so we're going to have a great conversation today.
Yeah.
And so, Andrew, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
So just give us like a very, very brief rundown of just kind of your work history, what you started out doing, and where you are today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Love to be a part of this conversation. Yeah. So, vocationally, for what I've done for most of my life is I've been a pastor for 16 years. So, my dad was a pastor and didn't think I wanted to do that, but ended up jumping into full time ministry. Graduated college in 2010 and went to intern at a church in Denver, Colorado, where I was a janitor for the first 10 months. And then jumped into full-time pastoring. So I've been doing that for 16 years. But I think my last few years, uh, where I've been working at both my churches, have been large churches with large staffs, a lot of influence, big budgets. And most of my work that I've done within those ministries was in the leadership realm and really serving leaders, pastoring leaders, helping grow leaders, expand leaders, finding potential in leaders. And so as I moved to just outside of Destin, Florida, to pastor, I started realizing, man, I have a lot of soft skills in this leadership space, and I think I really know how to galvanize people and help people win and pull out their potential. But I didn't have a lot of hard skills around it, so I didn't have frameworks of how to help people do that. And so what I started doing is I started reading a lot. I started getting certifications just to kind of start giving myself some hard skills, so I could actually look at a client or look at a leader and say, "You're here. I can help you get here, and here's the frameworks that we use to do that." And so over these past few years, as I've kind of just created more tools under my belt, it's given me a lot more confidence now to jump out into other spaces that are outside my normal W-2 within ministry. So these past few years, I've done a lot of stuff now outside the church in the leadership space.
Okay, there was a lot there.
Yeah.
So just real quickly, just go back to the church in Denver for a minute.
Yep.
Janitor, walk us through the like just real quickly. You had a lot of jobs, but
Yeah.
janitor was the first one, and then it was youth, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then what?
So janitor, and I think for everybody in ministry, really, I think anybody in any job, I think when you start out in a place like that, if you can do the job um, for very little money, and it's the worst kind of job that you can have, it just gives you a lot of it helps you work through some of the harder times later on in life. I think it gives something to your foundation. I think is powerful.
Little
So
perspective.
did that, yeah. And then I was youth pastor, and then I launched like our internship program. So I started really working with young leaders in their 20s at that point. Started to now have conversations with people like, hey, I feel like I'm called to this, and really jumping into the journey. Then did young adult ministry, and then at that point, I really moved into the executive team of the church and preached obviously throughout that whole time, but did a lot of staff pastoring. Was a staff pastor for our staff for a few years, and really was kind of the guy when staff was wrestling through things, working through things. I was kind of the guy on our staff that people would come to. So I started realizing, man, I think I'm like starting to like get decent at this, of being able to hear someone's story, help them articulate it, pull it out, and help them get to the places they want to go.
So a number of jobs there, and today you're doing leadership development. Essentially, you're working with leaders, and you're working with
Yep.
pastors. But how interesting, even going from janitor to youth to internship to the young adults to the executive, how the clues were all there. The clues of what you were doing at that time has transformed into this other thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at some point you made a transition.
Mhm.
So what was that moment like when you guys decided to make a transition? Because there's a lot of people today, maybe they're working in a company that would love to be on an executive team or working on in a church that would love to be an executive team.
Mhm.
And you kind of were there, and you were at a big church,
Yeah.
and a lot of people would, would love to trade places with that person. But for you, there was a moment where it's like, okay, we're gonna make a transition, not only in career, but we're also gonna move across the country just to stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah.
What went into the decision to make a transition?
Yeah. I think, and I don't know how many people that, obviously I'm a pastor, so I have faith that is a part of every one of my decisions. But, I think that there's points in your life where God wants to do more. And, but often him doing more requires to put you into a season where there's discomfort, and there can sometimes be pain, and so God had whispered to us about a year before we left the church, you know this like feeling like, ooh, wait, I thought I was going to be here forever, and all of a sudden it's like, man, things are starting. And I think it just got to the place where for us we felt like the church was going one way and we were going another way, our family was. And we had to make a decision. Do we trust the Lord in this? Do we trust that this is the Lord's hand, or do we keep fighting it? But I found the more you fight those kind of things, the more tension that it creates within your life and the place that you're supposed to leave. And so I think that it was obedience is the bridge to breakthrough. And I think God was trying to break something through in us. And yeah, and so it was difficult when you leave the thing that you know and you love. And we were 21-year-old kids when we got there, you know.
So you
And
moved to Destin, and immediate success, rainbows and butterflies,
yeah,
best decision you ever made, right?
uh-huh. Yeah. No, it was one of those things where it was like, because when we left our original place, we were actually unemployed for 3 months because we felt like we were supposed to get out of the boat before the Lord brought a new one. And so we were unemployed for a few months, and then this other church reached out, and it was one of those things. Honestly, I didn't want to go, and but the Holy Spirit just kind of arrested us, and we sold everything, and we made the trek out there, and so our first year was brutal. It was brutal because we left everything. We left these salaries. We left this home that we had that we loved, that overlooked the mountains. I had my all my grills, and I had my gym that I paid 15 grand for in my garage. You open the garage, you see the mountains for days, and all of a sudden I'm living in a fourplex condo just outside of Destin, Florida. Yeah, but it was one of those things where for us we didn't realize in the moment, but in Psalm 23 when it says like he lies you down in green pastures, it was one of those things where we felt like the Lord was forcing us down to like lie down. And and what we felt was God's punishment was actually really His grace upon us, and we didn't realize how tired we were. I didn't realize how much unhealth there was in my spirit. I didn't I didn't realize that there was things in our marriage that weren't in alignment, and there was things about me as a father and a husband as a leader that I had really lost track of what was really most important. And so that year, though painful, it gave us a moment to realign um, our souls. So the greatest gift we could have ever received. But you can't connect dots looking forward. You can only
Yeah.
connect them looking backwards. So,
Yeah. Okay. So, hard, humbling first year, but you see in hindsight a lot of goodness in it, a lot of preparation, some rest, some
yeah,
calibration, time to get healthy. And I think a lot of people can probably resonate with that and have experienced that. So we fast forward to today.
yeah,
You're doing what I'm going to call leadership development. You're specifically working with pastors a lot, also some
mhm,
corporate clients as well.
yep,
Just as somebody who was a pastor, what are the, maybe two or three top issues or problems you're trying to help pastors with, leaders with?
yeah, yeah. I think that we live in a world where we wear exhaustion as a badge of honor, and but I found, and what I really try to teach is that the only people who care about your exhaustion, or that are the ones who won't be sitting on the front row of your funeral one day. Like the rest of the world celebrates it, but they're not the ones who you're going home to at night. And the ones who your exhaustion actually affects are the ones who matter the most. Um, And so I'm seeing that a lot in our world where it's just like run, 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 run. Also, what I'm seeing a lot is I think that we have become in this interesting world of like this self care movement where like we have more self care resources than we've ever had before in our world, but we're also the most anxious and depressed people that have ever walked on the planet. And so we also preach a lot of things of like, hey, only take care of self. It's about me. It's about my workout schedule. It's about my workout routine. It's about my things. But then we're not having the healthy outflows that we're called to make the impact. And so our world really becomes revolved around us. And so it's like this interesting dynamic. Like people are ex- chasing a lot of things, but it's exhausting them, and they're wearing around as a badge of honor. But then they're also the way that they're replenishing themselves is a little misguided. And so yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic I'm seeing with a lot of leaders, that a lot of leaders don't understand how to really have healthy inflows so that they can do the things that they're called to do. They don't have healthy rhythms when it comes to their physical body, their spiritual health, their mental health, their relational health, and so they find themselves living a lot more tension than they'd probably desire.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So you've evolved into a role where you're helping people with those issues. I've got to imagine that that didn't happen overnight. So to go from somebody that was kind of in a traditional church model with a traditional job to kind of creating something.
Yeah,
I'd like to help leaders. I'd like to help pastors. I'd like to help them with these specific things. I think this is the problem, right? Where we're wearing a badge of honor. Exhaustion is a badge of honor, and we're kind of overcommitting to people that won't be there for our funeral, but not to our family.
yeah,
And then you back into the problem you want to solve, and you're doing that today. But there has to have been a point where there was was there a hurdle that really kind of made it difficult to get to where you are, or was there some doubt or maybe a limiting belief? What were some things that made it harder for you personally to get there?
yeah. I think for me, I was at the church in Denver for 13 years, um, and and I had gotten so much success there. But sometimes when you're at a place for a long time, you wonder when you leave there, was my success just because I was there for a long time? Was I just successful because I was kind of just the next one up in a lot of the scenarios that I and so when you leave that, you're in this like identity crisis of, am I actually good at the things that I had success in, or like does my talent travel? Like I was really good on this team and I made a big impact on this. Can you even see it like in professional sports? Like someone crushed it on and they go to a new team and for some reason it just doesn't translate. And so does my talent translate? And so I really had to reinvent myself. And so I think that's why I really started leaning into more of like the some of like the hard skills of, okay, so yes, I am gifted at this, but how could I articulate to somebody how I did what I did? And so now I started to develop some frameworks around how I work with teams, how I work with people, how I speak with people, how I engage with people, how I facilitate conversations, and then some of those certifications and stuff too. So that started really helping me gain some confidence in myself a little bit more. And I think that action breeds confidence, right? Confidence
Ah,
isn't coming, and so I think that we're always waiting for confidence to show up on our doorstep, and confidence is not coming. So if you're listening to this, you're waiting for confidence. Confidence is not coming. But as I take steps, I start to believe in myself more. I take a step and I see a result. I have this conversation and the way that they engage me, ooh, that felt good. I think I got something here. Confidence, right? And so as I take those steps, and so I think for me it was this progressive revelation of the gifts that were inside of me.
it was a progressive revelation of gifts inside of you because you took some action. I mean, you had it,
100%.
you had it, you had it, you had a hunch that maybe I could do this, maybe I'm good at this, but ultimately you weren't going to get there without taking action.
Yep.
The other thing
And
about
I think
action
the
is yeah, you go.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
The other thing about action is it's clarifying. You probably were able to close some doors by
Yeah,
moving forward. Yep.
exactly. Yeah, and I think too, a big thing, if someone's trying to understand, like, okay, I really love to jump into doing more of this. I started talking about myself to other people as this is what I do. And so the conversation was more coming out of me more than like, hey, I'm a pastor, but more of, hey, yeah, I'm in the leadership space. And so I love to do work with teams and individuals around health and leadership. So I started talking about myself as if I did that. And listen, if you do it one time, even if it's a free client, you can now say, I do this. so, uh, so that's
I
something
sat
really
down.
cool.
I there was a lady I met once who was we were I think I had visited a God, it was a business networking thing. I don't remember what it was, but I remember talking to this very accomplished lady after the fact. And at the time, this was years ago, but she was a speaker, and I was just curious about that. And I was like, how do you go become a speaker? And she just looked at me and with a deadpan and said, you just tell people you're a speaker.
Yeah,
And that's literally it.
100%.
And at the time I was just like, no, there has to be a class or a process or a track. And that's there's a big detachment from that's the old mindset. The new mindset is just like you said, I help pastors I do leadership development with pastors, right? I'm a
Yeah.
speaker, I'm whatever else. And it's
And you
kind of
see that
foreign,
on
but it's also
LinkedIn. You
easy.
see that with people.
Oh yeah.
Who knows if that person actually does it, but they're claiming that they do it, and something in your mind triggers that person must be an expert in that. But I can't tell you how many things that I've gotten over these past couple of years from just in conversation, telling people, "Oh yeah, actually, that's one of my favorite things. I actually do this with people," and then I'll get a phone call or an email a month later, be like, "Hey, would you mind coming in with my team and talking about that?" And like, sure. And then I'm getting on Canva and I'm creating like some, I'm starting to try to figure out, okay,
Make it
how do
up
I
as you
want to
go.
create this talk, And it's not a fake it till you make it. It's inside of who you are. You just haven't yet been put to the fire to create a talk around it or a keynote around it. Like there's so many things that people are passionate about and you just haven't yet had an opportunity to create a workshop. Well, when you get the opportunity, then you're going to bust your tail to create that first workshop because you've never done it before. And so, but once you do that, now you got it, and then you
Yeah.
keep doing it, and all of a sudden you got 5, 6 workshops, keynotes that are in your repertoire now. So
Yeah. I love that. I think that's not taught in school. I think it's actually not that hard to do that, but it's so foreign to most people because everything that you are taught is there's a system and there's a process you need to follow. And you need to do this, and you need to go down this track.
right,
And in reality, when you get out there, it's just about this is what I think I'm good at. Here's a problem I think I'd like to try to solve. Hey, by the way, Andrew, this is the problem I solve. And then you get a
yeah,
phone call a month later, 3 months later, whatever the case is. So on that note, um, you're full time at a church right now,
mhm,
but you have a couple things that you do where for yourself. And so the way I kind of think about it is when you work full time somewhere, whether you've got a 9 to 5 or whatever else, you kind of have one client, and your one client is either your boss or it's that business or that
right,
church. But so you have that, but you also have Fit Pastor Co. Right, where you're kind of working for multiple bosses, multiple clients, right? So, what has the transition been like for you to still have kind of a traditional job at a church, but also have, if you want to call it entrepreneurial um, venture or whatever, where you are working not for one, but for many and for multiple?
yeah. Yeah, that's been a really interesting balance because my whole life has just been I've had one boss and I have this W-2, and then all of a sudden you open up yourself to this space where there's multiple people who are kind of biting for your time. And I will say this to somebody who might be in a space like I am, I I felt like it was honorable to my main W-2, my lead pastor, to have a conversation with him and to say, hey, this is what I really feel called to do. And I want to get your blessing that I'm not it may maybe everyone doesn't feel that you need to do this, but to get his blessing, like, hey, I really feel called to do this. Are you okay if as long as I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do with my work here, that I engage these other things? And getting that blessing was really cool because it has really freed up my mind to be able at 1 o'clock today, um, shoot to my house and film this podcast with you. and not feeling like I'm having to hide. Now most of my work I'll get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, or I'll do it late at night. So when I'm at the church and I'm doing the work, then I'm doing that. But I do think that has been like an interesting thing that a relationship that I've had with my boss. So, hey, I have this speaking engagement, this keynote. Are you okay if I go? Hey, it interferes with this event. Okay, well, the church wins, right? And so I would say honoring, if there's a W-2 that's paying the bulk of your life for you to live and for you to feed your family, they got to win. And you have to figure out. So that's been an interesting thing of how do I navigate working with other people and engaging with other clients while I still have this job that I need to do. But I think when you have a healthy relationship with your leader, and I think there's a lot of interesting things where people are trying to start up a new thing and they're doing it on the time that they're at their W-2. No one knows, but so I think there's some integrity issues there that I think people need to be aware of. But that's freed up my mind a lot to go chase some of these things because there's a healthy relationship there with my boss.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm in financial education, financial literacy. One of the problems that folks are facing today is we just have rampant inflation. And so inflation is, with a salary, which is generally a fixed income, it erodes the salary over time. And even with cost of living adjustments, it's very, very hard to keep up. And so there's a lot of pressure under kind of the traditional work model, which is your W-2 95 salary.
Yeah.
And that very much came out of the industrial era, right? And that's fine. And we still have that, but it's under pressure. It's going to be under more pressure. And you're going to see more and more what I would describe, and we talked about, as hybrid workers, right? Somebody that's got a W-2, but they also do these other things on the side. And I think your point about integrity and ethics and communication, that's important. But what's happening, and I think COVID really accelerated this when we started having people stay from home, and some companies felt like, okay, like, why do we need this big corporate building? Let's sell it, lower our expenses. Let's have everybody stay home.
Right.
And some companies really were kind of like, no, I think we need a synergy. We want people to come in. That's all fine either way. If inflation continues to be a problem, which I think it will, you're going to see more and more hybrid earners, and you're going to see more and more people learning how to repackage their own skill set. Maybe it's for a W-2, but maybe it's for something that I run and control. And so what's cool for someone like you with Fit Pastor Company is you've created an income source that you control. You can't get fired from Fit Pastor unless you fire yourself.
Right.
And then you can also scale that to whatever degree you desire. You have a high degree of control over that source of income. So I think there's a lot of people that are scratching their heads going, people aren't looking to get out of W-2 for the sake of it.
Right.
They're trying to figure out the financial side of, okay, I'm compensated fairly here, but for some reason it's still just not enough. I've got to do more, do something else. And that's where getting outside the box and learning how to work for multiple clients like you have might be beneficial.
Yeah, and I think there is a need for it, and really where this was birthed out of, this might be helpful, was when we were leaving Denver, Red Rocks in Denver. I was all of a sudden unemployed, and I didn't have a skill set at that moment where I could just go build my own thing, and so I had to wait for another church to hire me, and based off of the value that they placed on me, dictated the style of life that my family got to live when we moved to Florida. And that bothered me deeply. That, okay, based off how this church values my family, they're going to pay me a certain salary for that. And based off the salary that they think that I'm worth, that's going to dictate the lifestyle of our family. And so there was something that happened inside of me in that moment where I said, okay, I have to do this right now, but that will never be the case again. And so now, over the past few years,
sounds like we burned the boats.
Yeah, I've created a value in Andrew Matrone that that actually brings money into my bank account. Where if for some reason, hey, we're done here, for whatever reason, I can go bet on myself, and I actually have an availability to go make some money in some different. And so I do think that everybody should have something that they're working on because the reality is, if you're listening to this, yes, you might be super passionate about your W-2, but you're called to be faithful I'll say it. You're supposed to be faithful to your calling before you're loyal to a company. And there are things that God has birthed inside of you that maybe you're burying right now. And so, not to say, hey, I need to go make money based off of this, but what are you working towards right now that are passions inside of you that you are building, that you are growing, that you're thinking about, that you're having meetings with people? I just think that too many people die with dreams in their heart. And I think that there was just some dreams where I felt like, man, if I don't just try and bet on myself, I'm gonna really regret it. And I read a book recently. It's called The Twin Thieves, and it says the two biggest reasons why people don't put themselves out there is fear of failure and fear of judgment. And man, when we can get past fear of failure and fear of judgment, man, you can do so many things in life. And I think I'm just at a place in my life. I'm 37, and I'm in a great season. In your 30s is it's where your energy meets your experience, and I really feel called to put myself out there and go try some things. And I've failed more in these past couple of years than I failed in my first 14 years of working outside of college. But it's been way more fun.
Well, and every successful entrepreneur out there is like, just fail as fast as you can.
Yeah,
What's so annoying about this whole thing is, like, I don't even know if failure's the way we use the word failure. A lot of times it's not real.
yeah,
School teaches you there's, like, here's your test, there's right and wrong. If you get this percentage wrong, you failed.
mm,
But that's not how the real world works. The real world works in iteration.
yeah,
And it's not success failure, it's did this work, well, 10% of it worked or 30% of it worked, okay, let's try this, let's tweak this, let's tweak this. That's everything. And that would be something really valuable for people to learn in school
yeah.
that we
You win
don't.
or you learn, right?
Yeah, well,
And
it's
yeah,
that's a better mindset. So you talked about dreams, and a lot of people, and I've got top 5 regrets of the dying behind me somewhere, and I think it's the number one regret of the dying is I wish I'd let myself be myself and pursue my
mm,
passions. But, like, the people that are passing away, their number one regret is, oh my gosh, why didn't I follow up with that thing when I had a chance, or go after that dream? I think you kind of alluded to this, but a lot of people are waiting for permission. You talked about the church assigned a certain value, and if I don't go do this right now, I've got, and I think people are waiting for permission to step into something. Well, you're the one that's got to give yourself permission to go do that. So yeah, I can, the moment, and I think everybody's got to get to this point, but it sounds like the moment for you was, okay, here's the value I've been assigned, and I'm kind of trapped, by this, whether I like it or not. We teach people the 3 rules of income in 2026 in an inflationary environment are: you have to have a source of income you control, one you can grow, and multiple, ideally, because one source of income, W-2, whatever else that most people have, it's ultimately a single point failure
yeah,
system.
yeah,
So the company could have a bad day, you could get let go, you lose 80, 90, 100% of your income. If your spouse is working, that's great, but a lot of times people need both incomes, so it's still a single point failure.
yeah,
You lose retirement benefits, health insurance. Like, it's a massive, massive, massive problem,
mm,
and most people will experience a layoff at some point or multiple. And so it's just got, from a strategy standpoint, it's not a fantastic, one income's not a fantastic strategy. So I love that you've figured that out and are kind of moving on.
yeah,
You said though that I've got to do this. Like, if not now, never. I've got to just try. So
mm,
when you kind of felt that if it was frustration or pain or whatever, I've got to at least try. I've got to imagine again, there was probably some internal mind trash, right? That, well,
yeah,
come on, who are you, right? Was there anything specifically that came up that you had to fight through?
yeah. Uh, yeah, for sure. Well, I'll throw out a Bible verse there. There's a verse that people quote all the time. So, fan into flame the gift that you've received. But what people don't understand is the very next verse after that. It says, "For God did not give you a spirit of fear," which is interesting. That would be the very next verse. It's kind of showing that as you go to fan into flame the gift that you've received, the first thing you're going to experience is fear. Um, and I think that there was multiple times where I started stepping out where even me launching this whole Fit Pastor thing, I had no idea. Will anybody sign up for this thing? Will anybody? Well, in 2 weeks, I had 50 guys sign up. because I hit a spot for guys where there was this need for pastors who were unfit physically, mentally, spiritually, relationally. And I do something called life plan. So I do 2-day intensives with leaders, and so I sit with them for 2 8-hour days in a row, distraction free, and we work um, on these sheets all across the room. And people come into me because they're trying to understand their purpose. Like, what am I called to do? Where am I called to go? I think I had these talents, and we look at your talents, your gifts, your yearnings, your dreams, the way you think, your internal wiring, and it goes from people coming to me saying, "I think I should do this," to, "Oh, I must do this." And as you begin to develop a greater understanding of yourself and what's inside of you and your hardwiring and your dreams and your yearnings, your passions, uh, man, when you really begin to identify that and sit with that, you start to realize, like, I have to do this. I have to try. And so fear is not an option for me. And so at that point, we get to the place like, okay, I must do this. Then now, okay, well, we got to build this out. So if you're going to do this, then what are the rhythms that you have to put in your place in your life, and who are the people you have to put in your life that are going to help you achieve the things that you want to achieve, right? When motivation leaves you after the 2-day life plan, you're leaving inspired today, but what are we putting in
Now what?
place when the fear comes for you to keep pushing through it, and who's accountable to you as you're chasing after those things? So I think when you begin to understand who you are, how you're hardwired, and and start to put systems and structure and rhythms around yourself, and good people are going to keep spurring you on, that's when you start to actually accomplish the things you feel called to
Sounds like
accomplish.
action and accountability is what you just said.
Yeah, like even for me with coaching people, you can't motivate another human being. I can inspire you, but motivation's intrinsic. So I can inspire someone in a talk, but I'm not going to be with you tomorrow morning to get you out of bed. And so coaching, I help create structure and accountability. But you got to go do it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a horse drink, right?
You got to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So 2021 is when you left the church. Let's go to like 29. Let's just say 2019.
23 I left Red Rocks, yeah.
Oh, 23 was the church. Okay. So
Yep.
it's 2026. Let's go to 20. Let's just say, what is the biggest difference between who you are today and how you think today in your mindset from about 5 years ago, which was 2021?
Yeah. The greatest lesson I've learned is if your heart and your home are off, everything's off. And so but what happens is when your heart and your home are off, then you look to everything else to be your source of fulfillment. And so my heart's off, my home's off, but there's other things that can give me the satisfaction I'm looking for temporarily. But when your heart and your home are right, then everything else is just a bonus. And man, when my marriage is right and my kids are right and my relationship with the Lord is right, my body's right, my mind's right, my heart and my home are right, man, it makes everything just far more enjoyable. And I'm not looking at those things to be like, fill me, fill me, fill me. I'm showing up to those things full already. And if those things get taken from me, that's all right. I got my home, I got my marriage, I got the things that I need. And I don't think that was something I really fully understood until I lost the thing. And then I was sat there with my heart and my home, and they were off. And I'm like, I don't have anything to like
Hmm.
go fulfill me right now. And so now I'm just sitting with this. So I either figure this out with my wife, and I figure this out with our home, and I figure this out with the Lord and my soul, or I'm going to just stay on this trajectory that's going to be probably pretty damaging and destructive to
Hmm.
my future.
So a lot of internal transformation.
Yes.
And I just want to point out too, what I'm not hearing is I think it'd be easy to blame other people. I'm not hearing, well, this was off. I'm kind of hearing it more as a reflection on like, hey, I got to get this right inside of
Yeah.
me. So number
100%.
one, transformation, but number two, it sounds like that's a season where some of that other stuff was taken away, so you could focus on the heart and the home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we see with a lot of pastors. A lot of pastors, or even people, they leave places very angry and bitter and burnt out, and they put all of the blame onto the other thing. the job, the boss. And when honestly, most of the time, it's because you are operating from a place of unhealth. And so you're holding on to bitterness, you're holding on to offense, you're holding on to anger, you had bad sleeping habits, you're showing up tired. Like I just think that if people would be willing to look in the mirror, um, look at their own reflection, I don't know. I just think that that's so. I think that was for me is it gave us a great opportunity to like look at the reality of our
Yeah.
environment. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Warren Buffett said, I mean, he's talking about investing, but he says, oh, I'm about to butcher this quote, but the only way to tell when people are skinny dipping is when the tide goes out, or something. Everybody looks great until the tide goes out, and then you see who's skinny dipping, and so
Yeah, that's fun.
it's this idea when everything's peeled away, then there's an honest scorecard of
Yeah, yeah.
what's going on.
No, that's good.
Um,
I'll use that.
so for somebody that maybe is in a season where they're maybe doing well at work or thriving, but maybe the heart and the home aren't quite right, or for somebody that's just feeling this kind of internal discomfort of like, I think I might need to go do this next season. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think take honest inventory. I think that what's the quote? Prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. And so a lot of times we want to give a diagnosis without like really understanding what's the actual issue here, and so for me, so much of what I do with any kind of client or any kind of team is we take a good inventory of what's the reality of your situation. And four questions I always ask is what's right, what's wrong, what's missing, what's confusing, and take an honest inventory because you can't transform what you're unwilling to face. You can't fix what you're unwilling to confront. Like you, and so I think that a lot of times people they just want like the outcome. They don't want the different feeling, but they're unwilling to really. And so I think if that's someone in this situation, take some honest inventory. Ask yourself some difficult questions. Ask yourself like where even on as easy on a scale of 1 to 10, where's my marriage at right now? Where's my home at? Where's my physical health? Why don't I like my job? Okay. Well, then peel that back again. Why? What like, uh, your why should make you cry. Like there's we. I just don't think that people take enough time, and they feel discomfort, and they want the discomfort relieved, and so we'll do whatever we can do as quick as possible to relieve the discomfort.
Treat the symptom.
Yeah, and so I think that'd be my encouragement with somebody. If someone reached out to me, was like, "Hey, I'm really struggling." Well, then we're gonna sit. And we're gonna really peel back that onion. And then once you've confronted the reality, now we're going to make an educated decision on how we move forward. You thought that it was your job, but it was actually something very different. Um,
So I think you just said something great there. What you said was when you're saying honest inventory, you're saying you have to be honest about what the problem is and be very clear
yeah,
about what the problem is. Otherwise, we can't fix anything. And
no,
so treating the symptoms, whatever else, like being honest enough to say, and then having enough understanding to say, this is the problem. This is why I feel this way. These are why these things are manifesting.
yep,
And then we can go um, find a solution and start working on things. But if we don't get the problem right, everything we do after that's out the
yeah,
window.
yeah. We say you assess, you you aim, you architect, and then you attack. Right. So we assess. Okay, based off our assessment, what's most important? What's our win right now? What's most important? Okay, let's take aim. Okay, now how do we architect? What does success look like? Okay, let's architect a plan for that. And then you got to go attack it. And we can attack together through accountability and structure. But a lot of times people just want to attack the next thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Or
yeah,
well, to be fair, I mean, I think people probably do want to attack without, but for someone like me, I'm more inclined to analyze to death and not
mm,
attack anything. Just
yeah,
sit there and analyze and plan and strategize. And for me this year, every day I write the word action down on my to do list because I'm like, don't, I'm naturally wired to go really deep on things. I want to understand everything, but freaking go do something, by the way. Like actually
Yeah, because you
do
can almost
something.
get a little shot of dopamine by reading another book or listening to another podcast of somebody telling you to do something.
Yeah.
And at some point, you're like, I'm not going to listen to another book
No.
until I've gone and done the thing that I said I was going to do. you know? Yeah.
Well, man, I love the Fit Pastor Co. I'm not in ministry currently. I've been a pastor. I've been a worship leader. I've done all kinds of things. I'm a pastor's kid. My dad was a pastor, started a church for 30, 35 years, just
Amazing.
recently retired, and been around pastors my whole life. This sounds awesome for leaders and pastors. And it's, I know how demanding ministry can be. And so
Yeah.
I think this is kind of a non-negotiable. You got to have this if you're in the ministry. So where can people find out more about Andrew Matrone and Fit Pastor Co?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, the best is just Instagram, Andrew Matrone underscore. And then the Fit Pastor Co is Instagram. And again, I wish I had a big website and all the things, but to your point, I feel like I was supposed to go build it, and you will never have 100% built before you launch. And so even for me doing this, I had 80%. I'm like, I'm gonna get a Google form, and I'm gonna get an Instagram, and I'm gonna start reaching out to people that I know, and I'm gonna
And that's
start
enough.
building this thing. And as I'm just gaining data of what do they really need, what's gonna help them, what's gonna serve them, and then I'll keep building, right? And so yeah, finding me on Instagram is probably the best and easiest.
Awesome. Well, this was great. I've got a whole page full of notes here, and I look forward to revisiting this. But
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you for being here. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. Likewise.